Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I am so excited to be joined by the CEO and president of a Chicago-based company that's involved in something certainly very important and certainly something very timely as we talk about all of the many supply chain disruptions, but also, again, a fantastic Chicago-based business. So I'm very excited to be joined by the one, the only, Lou Sandoval from, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Supply Hive. Lou, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Shalom. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Absolutely. No, it's a pleasure to have you. So I want to start by talking about you to get to know the person behind the microphone. We'll, of course, then learn more about Supply Hive. And I'd really love to get to know your perspective on what's going on in the industry. But Lou, as I mentioned, you are the CEO of Supply Hive, a technology company that's providing supplier performance management software. How did you get into this line of work? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've kind of had a sorted and kind of interesting career. We'll say not sorted, but more of an interesting career. You did my career in thirds. First third was in biotech and pharma. The middle third was in consumer goods, and we'll call it luxury items. I actually owned a marine dealership in the Midwest that covered a 7-state area. So kind of an interesting kind of segue and switch over. And then prior to coming on board here to Supply Hive, I actually built a technology brand for a very large manufacturer here in the Chicagoland area, Brunswick Corporation, where we kind of developed a product that connected the company with their consumers, a tech platform. And then was asked by the investors to come on board here in January of this year to help lead the scaling of this company, Supply Hive. So, having led a multidisciplinary team with Brunswick, a tech team, a marketing team, sales team, and having had a history of scaling companies and building strong brands, I guess they thought it was a good resume and a good series of background to kind of take this company to the next level.
I love it, and I remember hearing your name at Brunswick at the time, and now you are certainly ramping up at Supply Hive, and in fact, during the summer and the fall, you've secured over $2 million seed rounds of investment, and that's fantastic. And you are really a fantastic example of minority-owned businesses and trying to set the standard for Chicago and around the country. And we'll perhaps get into that a little bit more. But tell us a little bit about Supply Hive and what you do. And I know you've got some exciting things going on with McDonald's, I believe.
Right. Yeah. So Supply Hive's a pretty interesting company. We've been around since 2018, and we're kind of the brainchild of the founder, Mike Anguiano, who's of Hispanic origin as well, Mexican American. And, this is Mike's second, we'll call it second creation in this space. His previous company, CVM, was sold to a private equity firm in a successful exit. That one dealt primarily in supplier diversity and basically supplier diversity enrichment. So basically connecting companies with diverse suppliers. So this product line kind of goes the next level in really creating using performance data from the supplier, we'll call it universe, for companies to help them drive the performance in their organization. And about 85% of a company's gross revenue is flipped back around in expenditures to suppliers. So as you can probably imagine, it's a very hot area of being able to kind of control the success or the failure of an individual company.
Absolutely, that's so important. So again, I know that there was some recent news that Supply Hive is gearing up as McDonald's trusted partner,
right,
to help diversify the restaurant's vendor supply chain. So how did that deal come about, and what are you hoping as one of the goals of this of this sort of relationship that it's going to do not only for McDonald's, but hopefully for the industry as a whole?
Well, it's interesting. So in supplier performance management, we started with McDonald's and their vendor management office, helping them, manage the data with all of their suppliers. And then there's a strong crossover with supplier diversity. The data set's very similar. It's just how do you leverage that data to help both large and small suppliers? And we like to foster the mindset that use of that data, an objective system such as data performance management, really kind of sets the supplier free. It levels the playing field, so to say, between large and small. So what they, so we started helping them in that area. And then, McDonald's is one of those leading edge companies that decided to tie a percentage of their executive compensation to directly how they're doing on how they're doing on their DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So they then, the next logical step was to use the Supply Hive platform to track their entire supplier universe and see how each supplier is doing according to their DEI initiatives, meet them where they're at, and help them grow upwards, to a level that's equitable for all, to make sure that their boards are diverse, that their management teams are diverse, that they have supplier diversity initiatives in place, et cetera. So that's basically how we kind of rolled into it. So it's been an evolving relationship with McDonald's that has really been, we'll call it very collaborative and very developmental at the same time.
Absolutely, and again, I've said this word now a couple of times, but certainly setting the standard and paving the way, which is great. And with you and your team, again, setting the example around how minorities are leading the way increasingly in Chicago's business market, but certainly gearing up with companies like McDonald's, and I know that there will be many, many others. And it's not just around Black, Hispanic, Asian, but also around veteran, and that's something very important to me, LGBTQ+, as well as disabled persons, and hopefully through the work that, again, our guest, Lou Sandoval from Supply Hive is doing, we will see continued progress in the Chicago market. But on that note, I've got to squeeze in a very quick break here on the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We're going to come back in just a moment, continue talking about supply chain. When we return on Get Down to Business, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Back to Get Down to Business. I'm your host, Shalom Klein. I'm thrilled to be rejoined by Lou Sandoval from Supply Hive. We've been chatting a little bit about some of the news in the world of Supply Hive, which is a technology company that provides supplier performance management, SPM software, designed to help corporations improve efficiency by centralizing, standardizing, scaling, and automating the supplier performance process. So Lou, before the break, we've been chatting a little bit about the work that you've done and the work that Supply Hive is doing. But every one of our listeners has certainly seen, you can't open up turn on your TV, read the newspaper without seeing about the supply chain disruption. So as a leader in this space, what are you seeing, and is there an end or some hope in sight?
You know what? I think there is hope in sight, and I think there were a lot of companies that were kind of, we'll call it, they were teasing with digital transformation. And I think what this pandemic has really exposed for a lot of people is how you have to be very forward looking, and you can't, think about the rainy day. You have to start planning for the rainy day. And I think the best way to do that is through digital transformation. Obviously, one of the challenges that we're seeing right now is not only supply chain shortages, but we're also seeing a talent shortage. So on two different fronts, digital transformation can deliver for companies. And in supply chain, in the supply chain network and supplier performance management, procurement for large companies, we're actually seeing a push forward, a rush forward, we'll say, towards digital transformation, using these platforms such as Supply Hive to better build relationships with their suppliers, so they get caught with less ahas and surprises when there are dips and turns. And we've had some dips and turns in the last decade, between not only, or like decade and a half, between not only the recession, but now the pandemic, which has created challenges for people. So I think you're seeing that the real push for digital transformation. Secondly, you're seeing a real big move on making sure that they're using technology platforms to supplement and augment their workforce gaps. So that's where I think a platform like ours helps as well.
No question about it. Absolutely. You heard it here. Lou Sandoval from Supply Hive sees the end in sight, but I agree with you 100%, Lou, that it's beyond just the supply chain. It is also that talent gap and the talent management piece, which is a challenge, and organizations like Supply Hive are assisting with that. So, Lou, we're running out of time, and in our final minute here on the program, I want to go back to that topic that we talked about before the break, which is minority-owned businesses. I know that Supply Hive has recently received and secured 6 diverse investors and 2 million seed rounds. What's the benefit of investing in minority-owned businesses from your perspective?
You know what? One thing I think if you were to ask a lot of investors and venture capitalists that minority businesses offer is we're used to bootstrapping businesses. So we're going to be probably more frugal than not in the management of the money that's invested in our company. Because in most cases, when we do start businesses, we end up kind of using our own money, or we use friends and family money and to get those off the ground. So when we do bring institutional investment money in, you're going to see a lot more. I'm not going to say a lot more, but you'll see a better attention to how it's spent. We look at it as if it's coming out of our own bank account. In those cases, it is. But that's one thing that you'll see. But more importantly, it creates generational wealth. Investing in diverse businesses creates the next generation of wealth, and generational wealth is really one of the biggest liberators that you can have for vertical integration in a society, but more importantly in creating those opportunities for different underserved communities.
Absolutely, and I've learned a lot in this conversation with Lou Sandoval, from the Chief Executive Officer of Supply Hive, diverse experiences, but diverse business as well, and enjoyed the conversation. And Lou, I know our listeners will want to learn more about Supply Hive. Where can they find out more?
Thanks, Shalom. So they can go visit us at www.supplyhive.com, or visit any one of our social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, where we cross-post on a lot of different things. So
awesome. Well, Lou, thank you so much for joining us on the air. I look forward to following your progress over there at Supply Hive closely over the coming weeks and months. That's a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business, the show about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Get to my website, shalomklein.com. To success. Let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560 The Answer.